All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video touching on the top props for this Thursday night football game. Now, just real quickly, I do want to get into a recap of last week. Last week was a very good week. I actually ended up doubling my bankroll, and that's because there was a lot of props that were popping up on the 9 to 5 cheat sheet really on Sunday morning, Saturday night that I just hammered home. There are a lot of fantasy score props, but for the content that I gave you guys, 26, 35, and 1. Obviously, here's the tie. This is from Monday Night Football. Here's the one from Sunday Night Football. The Kendrick Bourne call, kind of good, kind of bad. Only played in 50% of the snaps, but the targets were there. The air yards were there. Matt Jones put a couple passes on it, gets there easily. And then this one hurt, barely missing. Here was the 6 slip bet that I had given you guys out last week. A little bit of a sweat there with Courtland Sutton, but ended up hitting. We did get those 3 really awesome receptions props throughout the week that I highlighted, and this is another variation of that one. The Jordan Love fantasy score prop was there, and those receptions props, a lot of them were there for most of the day after I had put the video out, which is pretty clutch. And then last Thursday Night Football, the only kind of unfortunate side of it was that we had Jalen Hurts for over 1.5 passing touchdowns. So if you guys watched the game, you know that one felt pretty unlucky. 1 touchdown called back, 1 that would have been there in DPI, and then obviously getting 2 rushing touchdowns from the 1-yard line. A little bit fluky that he didn't get there, but still a good week. EV betting was working out pretty well. So let's go ahead and get into the preview for this week. We got the New York Giants versus the San Francisco 49ers, and I think this 10-point spread is kind of interesting for a Thursday Night Football game just because it's Thursday Night Football. We do see some strange things kind of occur on Thursday Night Football, but all in all, I think that's the right number, especially given that the Giants are going to be without Saquon Barkley. We already know that. They have come out and said that Matt Breida is going to be the starter. Now, whether that means he plays a lot of snaps or not, we will see. We also are kind of waiting on some news on Wendell Robinson. Personally, guys, I'm excited to see kind of what kind of juice he has left in those legs after another knee injury. He looked good last year in a small sample size, so I'm hoping that when he comes back 100%, they don't rush that. But 2, I hope he looks good. And then on the Niners side of the football, Brandon Ayuk had a shoulder injury. If you guys were watching that game or if you saw some clips, you could see that he was visibly frustrated by that shoulder injury. And I feel like we're getting a couple of good props just based off of those injury news items that we get. And whether or not Brandon Ayuk plays, the first one I'm going to touch on, I feel like has a good chance to hit. So yeah, this prop for Deebo Samuel does seem to be pretty low for me just because I think we can basically lock in like 4 receptions for him. Now, if Brandon Ayuk is out, I do think we do see an uptick in slight production. It's not going to be vast, but we do know just off the first 2 games, they have made an emphasis on getting Deebo Samuel the ball early in the game. So heck, he could get 2 receptions on the first drive, and then it might be stretched out for the rest of the game, whether or not he gets the over. But I feel like it's a very solid bet to at least get 4 receptions, and it's just whether or not he does get that extra reception. The biggest worry I have with this one personally is going to be that spread of 10 points. Maybe the game becomes a blowout too fast, and then they just don't have to throw the football as much. That being said, when we look at Brock Purdy's passing attempts, when they blew out the Pittsburgh Steelers, they actually threw the ball a little bit more. And this game against the Rams was a 1-possession game the whole game, and Purdy only threw the ball 25 times. That's partially a worry as well, right? We're banking on, let's say, 25 to 30 passing attempts, 20 to 15% of those being Deebo Samuel receptions. I guess that's a little bit worrisome. But let's take a peek at what's in the favor of Deebo Samuel. We know he's going to play about 90 or so % of the snaps. Love to see that there from him. Now, the biggest worry with this one would be that it only has a 52% chance to hit. But guys, when I was showing you guys the recap of last week, part of the reason why I was showing you guys that is that there is a much better edge on the full slate because we can pick and choose which bets are the best bet. It's as simple as that. Whereas the single game slates, it's more difficult to have edges. It just is. You're pulling from 1 game as opposed to 12, right? It just makes sense in that regard. We are much more trying to make bets based off of how the game's going to go, or we're trying to predict how the game's going to go and script how our bets will work, because we're just not going to get that many good EV bets, or we're just not going to get that many bets where we can tell the lines are off. That's not happening. And that's not happening this slate as well. I would say this is the best one, but we can see 52% chance for it to hit. And I just like that there should be like safety in this one, just knowing that they have been working the football his way. Then another one that I personally like in this game is actually going to be CMC, Christian McCaffrey, for over his rush yards as well. We can see the projection data is actually really loving this at 88 yards. We can see the sportsbook also have this line set at 80. Both Underdog and PrizePicks currently have this line set at 79. But what I like as well is that the sportsbooks are still favoring the over at 80.5. So it does seem like we are getting a slight edge on PrizePicks and Underdog via this line. And part of the reason why I really like this prop is because James Conner really just lit up the Giants last week. Like, there were so many plays in which James Conner went untouched for like 5 yards. Heck, he had a couple of big runs right away. And the Giants defense really didn't adjust. This is partially due to the Giants just blitzing a lot, trying to get home on Joshua Dobbs, which they really... I don't think they were able to do that much. Let's see. I guess 6 QB hits. That's decent. But like, we also look at the game against the Dallas Cowboys as well. They were pretty much able to have their ease rushing the football as well. It really didn't matter who was the running back there in that game as well. So then on the flip side, we look at someone like Christian McCaffrey, who has basically not left the field for the Niners, playing about 90% of the snaps. I would say his usage is a little bit too high. Honestly, if I was a season-long like fantasy football player, I'd be a little bit worried about that. I'm like, all right, no, let's keep the touches down a little bit. Let's keep him healthy. But that being said, he definitely is getting those touches, and he gets a great matchup. If he gets 20 rushing attempts, heck, if he gets 18 rushing attempts, I would even say 16 rushing attempts, he should be able to get the over here of 79.5 yards. That to me is also a pretty good one that we are getting. Then for what's worth, let's just look at some of the other props that we are getting. We got some Brock Purdy pops. Let's just pull those up by typing in Brock Purdy here. So looking at, guys, the best bet that we have available on the 9 to 5 cheat sheet when we're looking at an edge is actually looking at Brock Purdy for under 8.5 rushing yards. I don't know if I exactly agree with that one. We can see it is hit or miss. It's whether or not he's going to get a couple of rushing attempts that are just him pulling the ball and rushing it. It's whether or not that's for big play or minimal yards, because we have seen it kind of, I mean, this is it, right? He's going to get a few rushing attempts. It feels more luck-based than skill-based to hit that one. We are seeing a slight line discrepancy, though. Underdog has it set at 7.5. Sportsbook has it set at 7.5. Basically a 50-50 push, but at 8.5, could be a little bit too high. Then from there, I find this one to be interesting. This line has been fluctuating slightly. I believe it started at 29. And what I found interesting is that the game that was a blowout against Pittsburgh, he threw it 29 times. Probably not touching this one, but it is a low number. Really, if you are trying to bet the over there, I would say you're betting on the game staying close, but the game stayed close last week against the Rams, and that didn't happen. And all in all, I just feel like we're staying away from him. Take a quick peek at George Kittle here. We're only getting receiving yards for him. I don't really like betting on George Kittle, just in general, NFL DFS wise or props wise. I guess we can favor the unders for him, and that's simply because it comes down to whether or not Kyle Shanahan feels that they need to make him a focal point in that game. And maybe if Brandon Ayuk is out, they might suggest doing that, or that might be part of the game plan. But all in all, this is not one that I like. We're getting a slight edge for the over at 0.11%. So yeah, we're not a good one, just in general, just staying away from George Kittle. And that's really it for any props that we are getting for the Niners. We don't know if Brandon Ayuk is going to play. I will say if he does play, the line does seem to be a little bit too low, because if he does play, you do expect him to play more than around the 58% of the snaps that he played last week, dealing with that shoulder injury, and he was still able to manage 43 yards in that game as well. Obviously in the first game, he really went off. I'm just not touching that one though. If he gets injured, we might get some on Juwan Jennings or Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell could be someone that we're interested in, but I doubt we're going to get that. So yeah, with the Niners, we're just not getting that many props. Let's go ahead and move on into the Giants. So for the Giants, I do want to just start out with pointing that, yes, we are not getting that many edges at all here. We are seeing a slight discrepancy here, though, with Daniel Jones for rushing yards. Underdog has the line set at 38.5. PrizePicks has it set at 37.5. Sportsbooks have it at 39.1. And sportsbooks very slightly are on average favoring the over there. He's only projected to get 34 though. That's the worry there. I would say if the Giants are able to keep this game close enough for long enough, we do expect him to get right around 8 to 12 rushing attempts. Can that be enough for him to get the over there? Sure. Once again, like quarterback rushing yards, I don't mind it. And like, I'll use Monday Night Football as an example. I thought Watson would actually have a couple more designed runs with Amari Cooper out. Now Amari Cooper was active, and thus the few just plays that he pulled and ran with it, he wasn't able to get the yards there. The rushing attempts will be there. It's just tough to predict whether it'll be a big run or just, a couple of 3-yard runs. Those feel like a toss-up. And then from there, this is the one that I kind of disagree on. Okay. Darren Waller's reception. The sportsbooks have it set at 4.5. The projection only at 3.5. Both Underdog and PrizePicks have it currently set at 4. To me, this is where we are getting something wrong, I would say, with the sportsbook. They are heavily favoring the under, and that's why PrizePicks and Underdog have adjusted it. In week 1, we did see Darren Waller still get 3 receptions on 5 targets in that game. That game was a blowout. Then last week against Arizona, 6 receptions, 8 targets, 76 yards. This is very much what everyone expected after the preseason, after all the hype that Waller was getting, and after really producing in the preseason with Daniel Jones. Now I want to look into maybe why we are getting this line. So we look at the snaps for Darren Waller, and I want to call this out. Week 1, 54% of the snaps. He did not get that many snaps. And it makes sense for a player that deals with injuries in a game that's a blowout. Why play him a lot? Last week, 90% of the snaps. I think that's partially why maybe they don't see him getting 90% of the snaps again. Vegas doesn't. And if that occurs, sure, going to be more difficult to get that over. And guys, just for what it's worth, like looking at his tight end data, he's only ran 59 routes, obviously, because he didn't play that much in week 1. He still has the 3rd most targets amongst tight ends as a result. And I can guarantee you that we are going to get a lot of other tight ends with probably some higher receptions props this week. And guys, it's not like the Giants have absolutely dominated against tight ends, but they haven't been terrible. And maybe that's why in total they've given up 10 receptions to the tight end position, but only 99 yards. Receptions wise, that's basically middle. I'm sorry, I said the Giants. I was looking at the Giants. I don't know why. The Niners here, they've given up 6 receptions. Okay, so it's much lower. So that might be more of a matchup-based thing. But when we were watching this game on Monday Night Football in week 1, we did see that Jake Ferguson was open a decent amount, 7 targets there. We saw Peyton Hendershot just miss on a touchdown. There could have been more production there. Like if we get Darren Waller playing 90% of the snaps, gain 8 targets, we like that a lot. And then last week, Zach Ertz was heavily targeted, okay? 8 targets, 6 receptions. I would say this is a good expectation for Darren Waller. So I know I spent a lot of time on this, but I do think that this is a decent edge that we are getting. Then let's just take a peek at the cheat sheet, see if we are getting any other ones. And guys, this is a better bet on the sports book to bet the over on. I want to call that out. I'm going to make the bet on PrizePicks just because obviously it's a single game slate, trying to get exposure to the game, but it's not going to be the best EV bet. Once again, make that bet on a sports book if you are playing on any other sports. That being said, Darren Waller over receiving yards is something that you could do. I do find the receiving props to be extremely interesting that we are getting right now. So we had Darius Slayton for over 34.5 receiving yards, which is the highest number out there between Underdog and PrizePicks for the Giants receivers. And then we look at Paris Campbell, 28.5, Isaiah Hodgins, 31.5. I do think that this makes sense though, because when we look at their snap counts, it was actually Slayton, Hodgins, and then Campbell, all about with a 10% split. Slayton playing 80%, Hodgins playing about 75%, and then Paris Campbell about 66%. So it does make sense why it would be scaled this way. I will say Darius Slayton does make the most sense to not only get the most receiving yards for his team other than Darren Waller, but that is also because he's a big playmaker. He also could have had he came close to having another big play last week as well. In a game where they're trailing, obviously you expect them to be throwing the football a little bit more, especially with Saquon Barkley out. You expect them to have to throw the football a little bit more. That would be one that'd be fine betting the over on if you were trying to force a bet. These other ones, probably not. Like if we get another 2.5 receptions for Isaiah Hodgins, sure, I'd feel pretty good about that. Same thing with Paris Campbell. Actually, I'd probably take the over on that one as well. But guys, that is it. Like it is a very, very tight slate as it sits right now. And before I get into the bet of the day, just to remind you guys, if you want access to that 905 cheat sheet that I've been showing you guys throughout this video, make sure to click the link in the description below. It is available for just $10 a month, or just type in 905sports.com and you can find it there. Then another way for you guys to gain an edge is by using the tools available at ODDSJAM as well. I've partnered with them once again to give you guys these kind of unique stats that are out there, tackles and assists. We can bet on some of these ones if you guys want to. We are just not getting a big edge here. Like these are the best bets that are currently available, and they are not sexy. These are not good ones. If you want to use them to get like a 5-slip bet for this game, you can. I don't really think I want to be doing that. Again, that's really up to you guys. And now, while I am getting into the bet of the day, I just want to call out a couple of other prop bets that we were getting that you could potentially add onto the slip that are good EV bets. We got Tanner Mordecai, the Wisconsin Badgers quarterback, who kind of was a letdown last week. 54% chance for him to throw an interception against Purdue. Bo Nix going against Colorado, which is expected to be a high-scoring game. This is at about 53.8% chance to get over 2.5 touchdowns. So those are 2 decent ones that you can use. Then another one just calling out for Tanner Mordecai as well for, rush yards. We are getting a big difference there as well compared to PrizePicks and Underdog. Maybe there's something there that you can find. Now let's go ahead and get into the bets. And so guys, this would be the bet slip that we can make for PrizePicks, but I want to call this out. This is a much better bet on Underdog for 2 reasons. One is that the payout is just better, right? We get paid out 6x as opposed to 5x on PrizePicks. That stuff adds up in the long term. Heck, that stuff adds up in the short term as well. And I also want to call this out. 2-yard difference. This might not be that much, but for Christian McCaffrey, rushing yards, it could end up being the make or break difference. Like stuff happens, right? We had Jordan Love in week 1, over 12.5 rushing yards. And even though he got it with a bad mark, he didn't get it. And he missed it by 0.5. That can be a big difference. So this is a much better bet on Underdog. Worth calling out, they do have these random promos that have been going on, whether it be this ticket thing that they have going on or the boosts as well. Just be on the lookout for those ones. But that is all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. Make sure to click the links in the description below to get access to all those easy to use tools. They'll give you guys an edge on both PrizePicks and Underdog. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing. I should mention, if you guys are new to Underdog trying to make that bet slip, use the promo code 925 spelled out. That will give you guys a 100% match on a deposit of up to $100. That's also a way to help out the channel as well. All right, that's all I have for you guys. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.